When you say white supremacists, they think you mean that they go home and put on a hood and look.
Yeah, but I'm not asking you if Charlie Kirk meets his own definition of white supremacy. You just very articulately laid out what a white supremacist actually is. And based on what a white supremacist actually is, do you think he's a white supremacist?
I don't think it's helpful to use that word. I'm not going to use that phrase. I think we need to get past that kind of phrasing, because that just puts up a giant wall between us.
It keeps going down. Like it's like a snowball of just bad shit back to back to back. Oh my god. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ariana Jasmine. Today we're going to be talking about Cenk and Marc Lamont Hill. They did a debate, apparently. We're going to see how it goes. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment for more videos like this, and let's get into it.
We have what I hope is a really spirited conversation. I see it, Marc, as a debate. It's not really a debate as much as it is a spirited conversation, I hope, with Cenk Uygur. Y'all know him. He's been on the show before. He's a friend of the show. He's also all over the internet. And he's been getting a lot of backlash for his appearance at Turning Point USA's America Fest, where he joined Charlie Kirk. I talked about this 2 nights ago. I didn't understand it. I didn't like it. I was confused by it. I was frustrated by it. And I said, let me reach out to my guy and see what he thinks about it, see if he can come on and have a conversation about it. And he did, and he's here. Before I bring him on really fast, I just want to show you all once again, and we showed this the other night, I want to show you all the clip.
What I mean by that is not a revolution against the Democratic Party or the left or the country, but a revolution against the establishment. So I knew you guys were for real in fighting against the establishment when I started going on right-wing shows and I would say something negative about Mitch McConnell. And when I did that in the past, what I would get back is, oh, no, Mitch McConnell's great. Pelosi's terrible, but Mitch McConnell's great.
Let's do that here. What do you guys think of Mitch McConnell?
All right. Yes, I love that. So look, for my left-wing friends that are watching out there, they just booed Mitch McConnell. That's a great thing, okay? And let's do one more. What do you guys think about Dick Cheney? My left-wing friends out there, we have been waiting for the right-wing populists to boo Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney our whole lives. Take the win. Take the win. Now, what we need to do in the Democratic Party is we need to do likewise. We need to have a revolt against the Joe Bidens, the Kamala Harrises, and the Nancy Pelosi's.
He's saying this as if a lot of us love Kamala Harris. Like, babe, a lot of us fucking did not like Kamala Harris. We were forced to vote for her. Not me. I have not made my vote public. No one knows who I voted for. But I'm just saying, like, they were force feeding her down our throats.
But I want to bring him in now so we can talk about what this all means. Let's start with the booing, because I think that's a good example of what I'm talking about. You sort of pointed to the Mitch McConnell boos, which I'm always a fan of, and the Dick Cheney boos as evidence that, look, they're done. But that crowd there, I would argue, that crowd wasn't booing Dick Cheney and Mitch McConnell because they represented any particular political vision or because they were part of the establishment. They booed them because they're Trump cult members, and Trump has issues with them. If those people, if Dick Cheney stands up and says, I'm endorsing Donald Trump, that whole crowd erupts in his favor. So to me, that's not even about a political move against the establishment. It's just good old-fashioned cult behavior.
Yeah. No, I disagree. So
damn, I think that was a phenomenal point that Marc Lamont Hill just made. And it's because those people that he named don't get along with Donald Trump. I think a lot of people forget that Donald Trump does not get along with establishment Republicans. Donald Trump gets along with the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Matt Gaetz and the far right wing of Republicans. But when it comes to the general, old time conservative type people, he doesn't get along with them because they don't get in line with him sometimes. So, I mean, I agree with Marc Lamont Hill here. I agree with him. And this is not, I'm not being biased. Like, I love Marc Lamont Hill. He was one of the people that I really looked up to that actually encouraged me to go to journalism school and do what I'm doing today. So I really do look up to Marc Lamont Hill. That being said, though, I do agree with the point that he's making. It's pretty true. If he said, how do we feel about Marjorie Taylor Greene? The crowd would have erupted with hoorahs. You know what I mean? And I think he knows what he's doing because there's no way he doesn't know what he's doing.
Look, I think you guys are wrong. On the one hand, I get it, Mark. So the fact that Trump is against McConnell and Cheney, is that relevant? Of course it's relevant, right? It didn't come out of nowhere. But so look, there's 3 layers within the right-wing movement. And this is true on the left side too. it's really a hierarchy, right? There's the voters at the bottom, and then there's the media figures and politicians in the middle, and then there's the very top leadership. And that hierarchy also has a hierarchy of trust, in my opinion, which is that you trust the voters the most and the leaders the least. And MAGA voters are honest to a fault. I mean, they're not hiding their opinion at all. How can I tell? Well, number one, you get the comments in social media, you see it on those posts, etc. Number two, having gone to AmFest and other places, I've now seen and interacted with hundreds of MAGA guys, and they don't all speak for each other, and they don't all speak for the movement, etc.
Do you guys see how generous he is when he's talking about Republicans? It's insane. It's really insane. He'll go on all these podcasts and scream and yell about Sam Cedar, but then he's like, "Oh, I don't know if I would say 50%. I wouldn't describe them all as fascists. Or I wouldn't go there." Right? It's fascinating. It's truly fascinating.
So there's a good 35%. These are such made up numbers, but that to me they think they mean well, for sure. I mean, look, of course, everybody thinks they mean well, but I mean, they don't have any kind of white supremacist agenda. They're not necessarily misogynist or something. They might have old stereotypes in their head.
Why do you believe that's true? Again, we're both conjecturing here, but why do you believe that's true?
Yeah, because I've interacted with them. And I think that what we've done is that we've gone into our bubbles, and we both think that each side is so evil that you can't talk to them, and they feel the same way about us, right? That still remains. But if you talk to those people, they don't think that they're racist or sexist at all, right? And so I know that
most racists don't, though.
Yeah. So look, I've seen guys who say, "No, I'm not racist. I had a black person in the house the other day, and I even let him use the bathroom."
Exactly.
That's so that way of thinking is so racist, and you don't know it, brother, right? So I got it. But they hate us on the culture wars, and on the culture wars, it gets super messy because part of the reaction to what happened with MAGA and making America great again, to your point, Mark, is that there was this feeling of, "Oh no, we're going to lose power." Now that doesn't consciously come out as that guy saying, "I'm afraid black people and brown people are going to take over. That's why I'm supporting white supremacy," and etc. They don't say that, right? But there's cultural movements. So the cultural movement of white America was like, we're getting over the edge here. We're about to lose the majority. And then we're in a world of hurt, right? And you have this instinctual cultural reaction. And that's kind of what you sense with the beginning of MAGA, right? And then, by the way, but let's be fair, our side, I think, and we could debate this too, I think we went too far. And so we went so maximalist that we lost the majority of Americans. And so Republicans, when they started saying identity politics, that was a trick in the beginning, because what's the Southern strategy? Identity politics, right?
Just from our audience understands, when you say we went too far, what would be an example of going too far?
Yeah. Let's take a couple of things, right? So I'm 100% in favor of trans rights, but on our end, when we say trans people must play in professional sports, right? The league shouldn't have a choice. But wait a minute, that's not where the American people are, and I don't even agree with that. And then people look at that and go, "Okay, wait, now you're." Do you feel
like that's a dominant issue of our side, of the left?
No. There's two things that happen there, Mark. So the right attacks first. Let's be clear about that, right? They trans people are minding their business. Now, maybe culturally, they're becoming more and more dominant. Our side is becoming more and more dominant, and it's starting to grate on the right wing, et cetera. But then the right wing passes laws, right, saying, "Hey, this against trans people, that against trans people."
Right. Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. It's like that's a right wing issue. That's a solution in search of a problem. The right started making up all these laws and rules and saying, "Oh my God," as if the left were as if that were a priority issue for the left. And then the left speaks a little bit about it, but I don't. And then it becomes the left has gone too far. They're out of control. It's like, well, no, the right is doing that. It seems like you're almost echoing that right wing talking point.
So on the trans issues, the right wing is the one that baited us, right? They tried banning trans people in the military. That wasn't that popular. They tried bathrooms. That wasn't that popular. Going after their core constitutional rights wasn't popular at all. And then, so they went all the way to the outer edge, trying to find a place where we'll fall into their trap. That's where we ran into professional sports, some of the terminology we were using, birthing people, etc. And then gender reassignment surgery, pre-18 years old. These are very unpopular positions. I don't happen to agree with any of those positions, as it turns out. But even if I did...
But also not dominant. I just want to be clear, they're also not our dominant positions. Most people aren't... So even as we say it right now, it sounds as if the left has gone too far and the right is just being more reasonable when the left isn't saying this stuff. In general...
No, but Mark, that's the key. So when the right wing came in and attacked on those issues and they went further and further out, there's a line where I would have drawn the line, even if I held those positions and said, look, guys, we're not going to win on those. I would say to the right wing or to anyone to make it super clear, we're not going to win on those issues. We got more work to do in convincing the American people to be on our side. But there's no point in debating it because we're not arguing it, right? But we didn't do that. And you have to, and then when you get to the left, again, the left is not a monolith. The left is gigantic and has a lot of different parts of it. But in this case, a lot of left-wing activists online were like, no, we fight and we die on this hill. Because if you give 1 inch, that means you're surrendering. And no, we always go maximalist. And so you could tell in the reaction, Mark, because when Anna and I said, yeah, we don't agree with those, for example, those 3 things, right? People said, no, you're a right-winger, you're a traitor, some said Nazi, etc. And
this could have been summarized very easily. He's elongating this so that his point gets lost in the mix. How do I say this? Yes, Republicans use trans rights as a talking point for their political ideology or their culture war, per se, lack of better terms. A very small population in the US is trans. They've always existed. Trans people have existed for thousands of years. Not a new concept, not a new thing. We can go on and on about that. But when Cenk commented on it in a way in which he was being turfy, right? He was like, oh, I'm progressive except for trans people, right? I remember one of the broadcasts that I was covering on one of my streams, Anna and Cenk were legit like, I understand why trans people are protesting. I just don't know why they're protesting like that. You don't have to protest like that. You can be calmer. You don't have to be so disruptive, right? And you're playing into that Republican agenda. You're literally playing into it. You're saying things that Republicans say, but you're twisting and turning it to be more palatable to you, even though it's not palatable. It's just, there's a lot of work that he needs to do if he wants to be palatable again. It's just not, he's not there at all. He's straying away. And it's like, he's so off. Here's the thing, like, I am a leftist, right? And I don't tend to comment a lot on trans issues, etc. because number one, I am not a trans person. I'm bisexual, but I'm very much a cisgendered woman. So I leave a lot of that political commentary to the trans community because I feel like they can hold their wits end when it comes to that conversation. And also I might say something that's wrong. I don't want to be that person. Cenk had I know he had at least one trans political commentator, and she was great. Her name was Ben. She was amazing. Instead of putting on the trans person to comment on different political issues, him and Anna decided to stir up a bunch of shit where Anna was like, don't call me a birthing person, and Cenk was like, I don't know why they're protesting like that. You guys can protest calmer, and I don't agree with trans people in college sports, blah, 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 right? When it's like, at the end of the day, Cenk is a cisgender heterosexual man. As a person who has such a large platform that makes so much money, he could have hired a couple more trans political commentators and had them jump in whenever he needed them. One of the biggest part of being a leftist political commentator is understanding sometimes it's just not your place to comment, and that's okay. It's okay. I learned that the hard way. We all learn it, okay? When Ukraine was invaded by Russia, I took a step back. I was like, you know what? This is not my space. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, and I can't learn this history within a day or two. So I brought on a couple of professors that specialize in Ukraine, Russia. I put it up on my YouTube, and I was like, all right, I'm sure the other folks that are white can take this up because it's just not my forte. It's not my field. But I think a large part of being a leftist commentator is understanding your place, knowing when it's your time to speak on something and when it's not. For example, if something happens in the Middle East, I'm on it. But guess what? Even when Bashar al-Assad fled Syria and the new leader took over Syria, the new rebel leader, I didn't comment on that because even then I was like, I don't think this is my place. I need to let Syrian people celebrate this, and then I can comment about the geopolitical implications later. It's a balance of understanding when you can speak and when you shouldn't speak. And I just think Anna and Cenk fell into this trap where they started commentating on shit that just didn't really involve them. And it takes a lot of like putting your ego aside to truly understand that as a political commentator, because you want to believe that you can comment on all of these things and you're going to say the right thing, but chances are you're not. You're just not going to say the right thing, and that's okay. For example, I made a video about indigenous peoples or whatever, any other group that I'm not a part of. I send it to an indigenous person that I know, and I'm like, hey, can you please look over this? Does this look okay to you? Did I say anything that might be deemed as offensive? Is it okay? And then I try to compensate them for their time. I'll send them like a gift card or something or whatever. But it's one of those things where it's like a good leftist political commentator will know when to speak and when to stop. And unfortunately, Cenk just like fell into this trap of speaking when he shouldn't have, in my opinion.
Well, that's not productive or helpful at all. And so, I'll give you another example about my own identity, like Muslims, right? So I want to protect Muslims, Americans, and our rights 100%. There's no negotiation over this whole deporting, denaturalizing nonsense. We'll fight it 200%. Fight the Muslim ban 200%. There was a brother up in Minnesota a while back, and he sued the grocery store that he was working at because He said, I shouldn't have to handle bacon and pork at the checkout. And I was like, no, brother, that's your job. Okay. If you got those concerns, go take another job, right? And if we had, let's say, dug in on that position, again, I grant we didn't, was not a big political issue, but if we had dug in and said, no, maximalist, that's it, Muslims should be allowed to work in the grocery store and not do this, we would have lost. And I would have said, no, don't do that.
Yeah,
but you're my rights backwards, and I don't want you to walk my rights backwards. Do you see what I'm saying?
But Jack, you're taking things that didn't happen and using them as examples to justify something that did happen. You're taking hypothetical counterfactuals and saying, well, yeah, if we had done this, this would be exactly why this would exactly prove the right's point. But things didn't happen. But let me just take a step back because
no, I'm just saying.
By the way, taking examples of one thing that happened and or giving examples of things that didn't happen is straight out of the Republican playbook. It's something they do all the time. If you watch someone like Jesse Waters, you'll see him do this all the time where he'll take one example of one thing that happened and then make a grandier point. For example, one immigrant will kill one person in one state and he'll say, look, all of the immigrants are terrible, right? Or they'll do the what ifs, like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if the immigrants start invading? Like, it's straight out of Fox News' playbook, which is why I'm actually surprised Cenk is doing this, because it's what they do all the time. Like, if you even watch a couple of clips, you would figure out that that's what they do. It's literally what all of them do.
Even if it affects me, I still have the right, like, I still have the same strategy is my point. That's all.
For sure. So I guess part of there are a few things you said that I think are really interesting. One is both sides are against the establishment, right? That these two issues. I think that the challenge is that argument presumes that the establishment is something other than right wing. We have two right wing parties that are fighting each other. Now, I'm not pretending the Democrats and Republicans are exactly the same. I'm not pretending that the Green Party and the Libertarians are exactly the same. But these are two right wing parties. And so when you say, well, they both want to fight against the establishment, I think you might be right. They both in their minds want to do that. That's true. Similarly, they both hate mainstream media. And they clapped when you said that. But the difference is when they say mainstream media, they're thinking CNN and MSNBC. They don't see OANN as establishment media or mainstream media. They don't see News Nation as establishment media or mainstream media. So you two aren't talking about the same thing. So even if you're using the same language, you two have very different ideas about what the establishment is. That crowd in that room, if you told them to get rid of establishment media, they'd be okay with Fox News living. While you and I both know that Fox News is establishment media. It's just it's just the ultra right part of it. I'm saying that to say that just because those people in that room say we want to get rid of the establishment, we want to tear down the establishment, they don't want to tear down right wing anything. They want to tear down the parts of the establishment that allow you and I to exist and allow the most vulnerable people in this country to be safe. So to me, it doesn't feel like a fair or good faith argument to say, well, it's okay for us to come together. It's okay for me to be on stage with them. It's okay for me to be in this space because we both want to get rid of the establishment. No, y'all don't. Not the same way.
Yeah, Mark, I understand what you're saying, and I agree in part, but I largely disagree. So let me break down. So do they mean mainstream media and establishment politicians, including their own side? Yes, they definitely do. Do they mean Fox News? No, they don't. You're right about that, right? So, but that doesn't, but what I say, first of all, we're not going to get everything we want right out of the gate, right? We're not going to come in and go, hey, we'd like to tear down Fox News. And they're going to go, yeah, of course not, right? So, but what I do say is, hey, we hate mainstream media. Yes, agreement. And I say, look, and this establishment. So Democrats and Republicans play good cop, bad cop, but they're actually the uniparty. Republicans go, yay, totally agree, right? So by the way, that's a giant agreement. I mean, we're just brushing past an enormous agreement. And then we get to mainstream media and I go, MSNBC and Fox News play good cop, bad cop. Now, that's the first time they've ever heard that, right? Because they think they've been told their whole lives, Fox News, right-wing media in general, good guys, MSNBC, bad guys, right?
Absolutely.
But remember, our own voters, Democratic voters, think the same way. So you find a 74-year-old person watching MSNBC Morning Joe every morning. She thinks MSNBC is the good guys and Fox News is the bad guys. No, it's good cop, bad cop. They're both the bad guys, okay? And so that's something we have to introduce to our voters and to their voters. So by having those conversations, I am in a lot of ways introducing that thought to them for the first time. And that's part of why mainstream media banned me in the first place. I'm banned on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News. I think they got the sense, oh, this guy's going to convince our audience that we're not here to help them. And that's true. They're not here to help them, right?
Okay, so here's the thing. This is very interesting that he brought up I'm banned from CNN and MSNBC to Marc Lamont Hill of all people, because first of all, I don't think Cenk got banned because he has this like ultra woke view that mainstream media doesn't like. I just think he shits on mainstream media all the time. And well, if you shit on mainstream media all the time, why would they have you back on? You can act all grandiose and say, oh, it's because I am going to open their minds and go against. No, it's you shit on them all the time and they don't want to invite you anymore. It's kind of the same. It's almost as if I say, oh my God, I've been a political commentator for 4 years and TYT hasn't grabbed me as a commentator. Well, yeah, it's because almost all my YouTube videos I'm shitting on them. I would be absolutely fucking delusional if I thought TYT would hire me as a commentator. I mean, maybe one day they will, never say never, but it doesn't seem very likely because I shit on them a lot, right? That's one thing. Number two, Marc Lamont Hill was actually fired from CNN because he was one of the first anchors / reporters on CNN to be pro-Palestine. He got fired. He had a full-blown job at CNN. He got fired because he was pro-Palestine. And that was back when it wasn't really that popular or cool to be pro-Palestine. It still isn't. There's still a lot of, backlash for being pro-Palestine, but back then it really wasn't cool, especially on somewhere like CNN. So he's sitting on Marc Lamont Hill's show, someone who was actually fired from CNN for an actual reason. And he's like, that's why MSNBC fired me, because I'm really woke and I'm going to change they know that I'm not going to work with their establishment. Like, nah, bro, you talk shit about them all the time. That's why they don't bring you back on. And it's crazy that you're saying that to someone like Marc Lamont Hill, who actually got fired from CNN for a real reason.
So there's a lot of work to be done there, but it's not, no, they're totally disingenuous and they don't mean it at all. Look, again, they tell you exactly what they mean, the voters, the MAGA voters. They're not hiding the ball at all. So they really do hate this establishment. Here's another example. I was on with Dan Crenshaw on Piers Morgan, and there was Vinny from Patrick Bet-David's show, very populist right-wing guy, and we ganged up on Dan Crenshaw because he agreed with me more than he agreed with Crenshaw. So these old lines are beginning to break down. And so in a moment like that, that's when we really need to be talking to each other, rather than just saying, okay, everybody there is a white supremacist.
Would I be hyperbolic to say half the people in that room at that event believe that white people are superior?
Yeah, it's not a great way of framing it, Mark.
How about 25%?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but since they don't consciously think that, they're going to be repelled.
Answer the question. Answer the fucking question, bro.
By you saying that. And you say, I don't care about them. I don't care.
I don't care about them being repelled. I guess what I struggle with is, if you are a white supremacist in this country, that's your tribe. That's where you go. You don't go anywhere else. Everybody in that room is not a white supremacist, but every white supremacist is probably in that part, is in that room, if you get metaphorically speaking. That is home for them. That is a safe space for them. Charlie Kirk, who's someone you shared the stage with, would you agree that Charlie Kirk is a white supremacist?
I would certainly agree that he has said very harmful things about...
No, but let's not do the mainstream media thing. Do you believe he's a white supremacist?
No.
Tell me why.
Because when you say white supremacist, you mean someone who has ingrained thoughts that lead to maintaining structural racism in this country, and from time to time literally says things that are racist that maintain that structure. When you say white supremacist, they think you mean that they go home and put on a hood and look.
Yeah, but I'm not asking you if Charlie Kirk meets his own definition of white supremacy. You just very articulately laid out what a white supremacist actually is, and based on what a white supremacist actually is, do you think he's a white supremacist?
I don't think it's helpful to use that word. I'm not going to use it, that phrase. I think we need to get past that kind of phrasing, because that just puts up a giant wall between us.
Between us and the white supremacists.
It keeps going down, like it's like a snowball of just bad shit back to back to back. Oh my god. Why? Hold on. Why the fuck do we need to show grace to people who hold white supremacist sentiments? Like, why do I have to be nice to Charlie Kirk so that we can get shit passed across the aisle? No, fuck that. If you don't believe in my existence as a brown Muslim woman who comes from two parents who are immigrants and working class, fuck you. I'm not gonna fucking work with you on anything. This is insane. He said we need to move past calling people white supremacists. Well, you know what? Why don't people move past being white supremacists? We can stop calling them that. Like, what is this insane grace that exists for people like Charlie Kirk, but, fucking Sam Cedar's a grifter? Make it make fucking sense. He's on here hating on Sam Cedar in every fucking podcast, but he's like, I'm not going to call Charlie Kirk a white supremacist. We need to move on from that. Like, that's crazy work. Bro, this is why everyone hates on you. This is why.
Yeah, but Mark, here, let me give you an example. Again, using my own identity, and this time very real, right? So I can go into a room and they can mispronounce my name. I'd say racist, okay? Oh, wait a minute. My name is C, pronounced like a J. How the hell is anybody supposed to know that? Okay, I can go to a room.
Yeah, but these are straw, that's a straw man, Jay. No one is saying that. What they say is, when they say Muslims are rapists, when they say Muslims are evil, that's the racist thing that we get outraged by, not them not pronouncing gender. We get right.
No.
If someone says Muslims are rapists, would you then say that they're racist?
So, Mark, it's how am I dealing with that situation is the question, okay? So I started out with a really really mild one of my name, right?
Yeah.
But when you go down the gradations of different ways that you could discriminate and be hateful towards Muslims, yeah, you're going to get to violent, savages, terrorists, et cetera, et cetera. And what's the best way to deal with that? Now, what I have done in the past, and what a lot of folks are still doing today, is call them racist, et cetera. And from time to time, if somebody calls me an anti-Semite on TV, I do call them a racist back, because I've never seen anyone.
He who smelt it dealt it.
Yeah, because I've never seen anyone who is on the Israel side that just automatically, reflexively, without even checking any facts, called the other person an anti-Semite, and they didn't think that Muslim lives were worthless, right? So I can't understand that any better than I do, having been the group that is most smeared in this country. I mean, yes, Black people have had it much worse in this country.
I don't know about the most smeared, but let me ask you, just to pause you for a second, because again, I'm not sure I understand. Is there anybody in this country that you're willing to call a white supremacist, or do you just completely rule that word out?
No, of course. If they declare themselves a white supremacist, everything they say is about white supremacy. So, for example, Nick Fuentes is an anti-Semite and a white supremacist. That's not hard to suss out. That's just defining feature. So, to finish my point about Muslims, but instead now, Mark, when I go into a room, I start talking to them, and then halfway through the conversation, when they begin to like me a little bit, then I tell them that I'm Muslim. And now we're at least have had some common ground and some bonding. So then they feel like, hey, wait a minute, maybe not all Muslims are terrorists, right?
You're one of the good ones.
Yeah. No, I get it. And they might think one of the good ones, but then when they see 12, 18, etc., how are we going to break it down, Mark? Because if we just call them names.
This is so sad. This is really sad, because why do I, as a Muslim and Middle Eastern woman, have to caricature as the good immigrant to convince people that I deserve a spot here, even though I was born and raised here my whole entire life? I mean, this is some fucked up backwards ass shit. I'm not gonna be tap dancing for people for them to be convinced that I deserve to have a space in this country. When I was born and raised here, when my parents, not that this really matters, but both of my parents were citizens. I was born here, I was raised here. Why the fuck do I have to tap dance to be like, oh, look, I'm one of the good ones. There's more good ones of us here too. Please love us. Please like us. And also, you don't have to be a self-proclaimed white supremacist in order to be a white supremacist. You can still hold white supremacist ideologies and framework and adhere to white supremacy beliefs without actually self-proclaiming as a white supremacist. That doesn't make you any less of a white supremacist than Nick Fuentes. You know, this whole solution of let's just tap dance and convince them that we're the good ones, we're the good Muslims, and hopefully they'll accept us and kind of put us in their acceptable corner of immigrants, and maybe we can be the model minority. No, fuck that, bro. If you're a racist, I'm not fucking with you. And that's how it should be. I should not have to tolerate blatant racism and disrespect in the name of trying to find a middle ground. I am not the problem here. It's you. If you're a racist, you are the fucking problem.
Names. It's not going to work. It hasn't worked. I've tried it a million times.
No. But Jake, that's disingenuous. Calling someone who's white supremacist or Islamophobic, that thing, to reduce that to name calling is unfair to the person who's being harmed.
No, I'm not saying it's name calling and I hate you and blah, blah, and you're.
No, but you just said to call them names. We're not calling them names. We're identifying them by what they are.
Yeah, but Mark, tons of folks on the right wing are Islamophobic, but me going and calling them Islamophobic is not helpful. So that's why I'm saying.
Your argument point that I'm not making. That's a straw man. I've never suggested in this conversation that we should be going into rooms and calling these people what they are. That has nothing to do with what I was talking about. That's a straw man. What I was talking about was the fact that you're in the room with people who look at the world that way, and what it means to be in the room with the people who look at the world that way. But if you're stipulating from the beginning that you don't necessarily agree that they're that thing, that's different. I'm not talking about how they self-identify. I'm not even talking about whether we point in the room and say, hey, white supremacists over there, hey, sexist over there, hey, transphobe over here. I'm not saying we got to do any of that. What I'm saying is that if we're walking into a room with people whose ideologies and beliefs are consistent with white supremacy, with Islamophobia, with anti-Semitism, etc., we have to at least question what the possibility is of reaching a political alliance if at the core they don't think we're humans, if at the core they don't think we deserve the same thing, regardless of what we call. And so if we only focus on the tactic of how to engage a white supremacist, we lose sight of the fact that they're still white supremacists and that they don't want the same things we want, regardless of what they say.
God bless Marc Lamont Hill. He just made the point that all of us want to make here, but don't have the chance to make to Cenk because he's very selective with who he talks to and who he doesn't. But him disagreeing with this tells you everything you need to know. And And quite frankly, this makes me very upset because someone like Cenk, in my opinion, should not, I don't want to say he shouldn't own a progressive media, because I still think he like worked on TYT and like he was one of the first in the space. So like I 100% respect that. But at the same time, you're hoarding all these viewers and all these subscribers and all these supporters that pay into your platform because they believe that you hold certain amounts of core tenets that you just simply don't. You refuse to call a white supremacist a white supremacist. That doesn't make you any better than any Republican. And it's just sad. They're losing followers, they're losing viewers, they're losing money, and this is why you made your fortune off of a core set of beliefs that you don't believe in anymore. And it's just unfair that you're bamboozling people, you know, or at least you're trying to.
There's a room full of Islamophobes. I am not going to, A, not go in there, and B, I'm not going to call them Islamophobes. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to start to change minds very gradually. And so I think that's a way better strategy. And yes, it endangers me maybe to go into a room filled with Islamophobes, but I'm going to do it again and again and again. And so even you saying, okay, half the room is white supremacists. Mark, so you're saying they believe in systemic, like they are part of a system that executes racism in the country. Yes, but we all kind of are. But so calling all Americans white supremacists, not helpful.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane. We all have no choice but to participate in this system. That doesn't make us all white supremacists. We are not all like Charlie Kirk just because we're forced to live in America. Like, what kind of fucking asswipe argument is that? Holy shit. Honestly, he's starting to piss me off. He's really starting to piss me off. And usually I don't like lose my cool on these react videos, but like this is like fucked up. This is genuinely fucked up. This is a very fucked up way of thinking. I'm not rage quitting, but I'm over it quitting, where it's just like Cenk is just in La La Land. He's a little delusional about his stances. Like I said, he sees himself as this crusader, this innovator in the space, and he thinks he's gonna change world and minds and all of that, and he's gonna bring the two political sides together by tap dancing and being the good Muslim. You can miss me with that shit. I could never. And to be quite frank with you, you should not call your media the progressive left when you're sitting here telling people like Marc Lamont Hill that you're gonna tap dance as the good Muslim person so that you could get their approval. Fuck that shit. I'm heavily disappointed. I don't even know what I was expecting going into it, but I can tell you that I walked out very disappointed. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. That shit was whack. That was whack as fuck. But anyways, make sure you like, subscribe, comment for more videos like this. My name is Ariana Jasmine. I'll see you guys next time.